Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Grolier. Thank y'all for coming to this reading. So for this reading, we ask y'all to silence your cell phones, please. And without further ado, we have Tom Daley coming up here to give an introduction. Excuse me. Sorry.
So it's Erin, right?
Yeah.
You forgot to tell us your name.
I did forget to do that.
Thank you, Erin, for an introduction to the introduction. And thank you for being an intern and helping James Fraser out with this enterprise here, which is a lot more work. Well, it looks like a lot of work, doesn't it? But it's a lot of work. And I want to just thank the Menkidi family for keeping this poetry bookshop going. It's the only poetry bookshop in the country, I think, and it's been around in one incarnation or another for how many years now, James? 97, 98? 98 in September. So you are in a historic spot, historic space. Just a couple of things. If you haven't silenced your phones like Erin suggested, please do. Now, in the event that we need to get out of here quickly, this door opens in, right? So do not rush the door, okay? Let the door get open before you make a crush here. It'll be a lot safer for everybody if you do. Hopefully nothing like that will happen, but in the event that it does. Okay, so there are 3 readers tonight. I'm going to read them. I'm going to introduce them individually instead of all 3 at the same time, so you can keep track. And I don't talk about people's bios. So if you're curious about their bios, you can go to their website. So I'm going to start with Lily Brown, but the other 2 readers are Kristina Andersson Bicher and Lo Galluccio. So Lily Brown, our first reader. The word corporeal takes on new dimensions in the poetry of Lily Brown. The body often predominates as focus, as location, as metaphor. In the poem, The Difference We Make in What We See, Night, when many humans are conceived, begins as it is combed back into the body, then braided over the body. The body multiplies into a chorus of bodies that join their voices. And in consequence, we throb to be relieved. The choir turns witty when the speaker ponders, do we have to go into the pantry face first, traced with chalk-thick milk all night long and the house limned with click song? The body of the human idea, the body of the human itself, sometimes morphs into the body of an animal. In Salton Sea, velocity, with its potential for damage, even destruction, is characterized as having a serrated fin. The speaker of the poem importunes with exquisite musicality about the sated sea, about the bone glass beach. We want a fish's soft bones of relief. In the poem form, what is glimpsed peripherally is not a building, but its bodies, perhaps the creatures that inhabit it, the creatures who built it, or the structural forms as corporeal elements themselves. And the speaker of the poem presents her body as manifesting a power at once clumsy and soaring. Crushed a dead moth with my sleeve, anywhere I lean, wing. Finally, the panoply of feelings a body is capable of includes some marvelously idiosyncratic experiences, as in this excerpt from the poem, Certain Allied Experiments. To be very young and beached on a couch, describe this feeling as rubber, warm to the touch, lodged in the chest. Lily Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
You may have read the poems better than I. I'll do my best. Thank you to Tom and thank you to James for having me. Really appreciate it. This book came out in January, and it's been like 14 years since my previous book. So it's very exciting to be here reading from it and have it be a physical thing in the world. And I had forgotten that the painting does live nearby. I sort of randomly happened upon it online and thought it fit well, but I did have to get permission from the museum right around the corner from here. So it's nice to be in the hometown, I guess, of the painting as well. I'm going to read most of the poems that you just told us about, but I'm going to start with one called Venus Transit. I used to have a very busy job teaching high school at an independent school in the Bay Area. And I rarely got any writing done during the school year, but I was lucky to do some residencies during summers. And that's when most of the poems in this book were written. So the first 3 or 4 I'm going to read were all written in Vermont at the Vermont Studio Center. And so kind of the lush summer landscape of Vermont is in a lot of them. And this one I wrote when there was this Venus transit happening and everybody was viewing the Venus transit through pieces of welding glass that they had sort of in the shop there where people built, physical things and sculptures and stuff like that. So that's the background on this one. Venus transit. I heard the voice of reason swerve boneward as it mouthed the high hills of art. I know both sides, the violence of artifact and the living tree, airy branches full of weeds. Once a sitting thing in a thing that stuck me back, I walked straight out in heavy rain, trying not to aim. His lungs gum thick, each word towed out with a chain pulled simultaneously back. I make another motion, send a jagged gift. Days are dams. Each week posts a sign above the water. This week, goodbye. Last week, the possible. I close the dam of the possible, open the dam of goodbye. Its aperture is a mouth pasted mostly shut. Through welding glass, see astral green. I look for freckle Venus. It's gone, or on the blurred brink of sun. These days, dream is a terror, unromantic to disclose. Take up its visions like fruit in arms, forget them in the cold barrel of the sun. This one was also written in the same place. It's called I Tie Down My Fill, Close the Sky. When I went outside and spoke, metal was coming out of my skin. I spoke backwards and others rotated the phrases back for me. I called for comfort, asking for something pliable and holy. I'd sleep here in your crescent eye, the laughter phasing from your face. However strange we need to be to get there. The skin's scales speak of failure, easy to fail all day. I'm only drawing a shape, the way the dandelion seeds get blown up or out, crushed down but still taprooted, a center, an estimation of the present, what's swelling in the body this fine, hot day. Irises blooming, dogs cruising planets as they mash their bodies against each other, chin quaking out of the understory. What's trying? Trying's what we cut through, the dogs horsing in the bush, the duck's sudden clang, or even thick leaves leaning up. I kneel like some other birth outside buildings. Purpose falls too, via gravity's tool. I push wood from wood, study the spider davening in its casual sleep, its body a light switch, turning off, off, off. I can remember looking up the word taproot when I wrote that poem because I didn't really know what a taproot was. But I've since learned intimately what a taproot is because I spend every spring trying to get all the dandelions out of the lawn at my house. And they really do go down very, very far if you've ever done that. You have like a Japanese weeding knife and you have to really get it in there if you want to get the whole thing out. Okay, the difference we make in what we see. So begins the night, combed back into the body, then braided over the body. It seals the drum beats in. I unfold fingers, bend knee, turn hip away from tree. Outside, dark bodies join their voices. We throb to be relieved. A woman asks me, is blank a real word? It is, but if the mind doesn't discern it, no need to believe. Figures remembered at the table, one glazed eye, one neck tipped down, one tugging at salad with a tuning fork. In this version of time, I hold a horsehair bow, feel it hard with my hands. I would dream up the where, but it's gone. Only crusted time felt with the body just now. We enter the Museum of Masks. The front advances, crossing plank. Our photos, gates we open backwards to draw the way the mind erases. Do we have to go into the pantry face first, traced with chalk thick milk, all night long in the house limbed with click song? Sometimes, August, we'd lie in the one air-conditioned room, stretched flat, the dead dropping heat. Space-time parceled out, flower by gloved hand, house by sea. Even the car's curve through corridor of pine, even heedless hum can't break green brawn. A pasture's deep color proves immune to point of view. Has anyone here ever been to the Bread and Puppet Museum in Vermont? Oh, that made an appearance in there in the Museum of Masks. We did a field trip when I was in Vermont to the Bread and Puppet Museum. Fascinating thought. Okay, those were some long poems. Those are longer than the poems I usually write. So I'm going to do some shorter ones. This one is called Salton Sea, which if you have never been to the Salton Sea, is a giant sort of mostly dried up inland sea in Southern California, somewhat near Joshua Tree. And it used to be a tourist attraction, I want to say in the 40s and 50s, and you can find postcards of people going to the Salton Sea and a lot of, ice cream shacks and beach spots for people to hang out. But now it's really almost totally dried up and there's bones everywhere and it smells terrible. And I think they've been trying to figure out with the help of scientists for a long time what to do about it, but I don't know what the current status is. So Salton Sea. Seagrass spears dim wind, green velocities, serrated fin. About the sated sea, about the bone glass beach, we want a fish's soft bones of belief. Bright white smells, I open eyes wide to believe anything is glass, white striped black, the chemical breeze. Here's a phantasm in tropic paint, an egret wheeling into God's metal wing. I'll do certain allied experiments. This one was written in a totally different place. I tend to associate all of my poems with geographical locations, I've realized as I've been doing readings. So I went to grad school at UGA in Athens, Georgia, and one weekend, I think, and maybe instead of going to AWP, the big writing conference that you often find poets and fiction writers and nonfiction writers at, I went to a cabin in the woods to try to get some writing done in North Carolina, like in the Smoky Mountains. And I wrote this poem. To be very young and beached on a couch. Describe this feeling as rubber, warm to the touch, lodged in the chest. In a cabin in the mountains, see bluish fog or the rogue sky coming through cloud to dislodge stone habit. To stand by stood up against surprise, a valve that lets another consciousness arrive. For a figurine slung from the ceiling, see a fat-bellied hen, see a flatfish, a glassed leaf, a blinking desert built like tonight out of lightning. I'm on a mountain, rocking in its side. And then most of the later poems here were written at the UCross Foundation in Wyoming, which if you're a writer and looking for residencies is a really amazing, beautiful place. And it's called What Are Maps? And it kind of emerged out of walking around all the ranch land there. And there were a lot of interesting gates designed to keep animals from getting out of ranch land. And that kind of informs part of the poem. What are maps? Thunder thuds out of plum clouds. The gate to the highest point I climb locks with a chain and 2 slots. One catches 2 loops in its claw. The other's a single blunt dent. I can open it if I concentrate. A cow can't, and that's the point. I once absorbed a person so completely, recollection dimmed to grades of light, mouths like cagey gates. General and particular rhyme to dreams interior. This morning, a wasp climbed sticky onto a paintbrush and reached one leg through the air like a test. I didn't know if it was faded or frozen and nudged it to a Navy book, then out the open door from which it went. Hard work has an end where it's not met. I will not, for example, trail the leery fawn who admits her face to query, looks long, then runs. I think I'll just do 2 more. The hem of the starry curtain. The atmosphere looked split when low clouds leaked sunlight coming from the west as if hauled from a too deep pool, a vein of sunset twined through a bite of sky. On the lawn, a rabbit stalled, not twitching, a statue in ink before a government hall. Cloud dramas tacked to you, also not twitching, your palm filled with a future named not now. You hate PM's lack of song, how bird call gets cuffed to a scene so steady it's nearly empty, but for that crane's ribcage lifting from a vase of plain. And then I'm going to end with the title poem, which has an allusion to a poem by Doug Powell, who was my D.A. Powell, who was my teacher right up there when I was in college. So there's a sort of inclusion of a misread line from one of his poems in here. And it was written mostly in Iowa City, where my partner was in grad school getting an MFA in fiction. And yeah, also sort of in San Francisco. So it's kind of a cross-country poem. And I also was teaching Lear at the time to high schoolers, so there's also an allusion to Lear. So there's a bunch of threads coming together, hopefully. Blade work. I went many years without reading the listings. I wanted to be liked by the poet in the dank restaurant who fastened his face to its shadows. There was an aura of mock wood, pebbles I aligned to stay true to some cracked intuition. Somewhere in the cyber ether, an alarum. The dirtiest place in your home has been revealed. The blare above a kitchen sink while I clean my teeth. Lear uses the royal we while addressing his daughters, who press their breasts to the floor, whose collarbones nick stone. While I was out with the dog, a raccoon bent its head around the corner store's bright wall and stared. Last week, I burst a green balloon with the Outback's black back wheel, Still earlier, I stood in a field of old harvest shards. Birds rose, then fell through their own shattered feathers for the sleek dog to retrieve. Clippets of summer lawns I misread in Doug's book, proceeding to dream of chlorophyll debutantes shucked from the earth's round edge, cut mercifully away from the semi-automatic sun. Thank you so much.
All right, so poetry can be in the hands of a genuine poet an enchantment. And I think your reading was enchanting. And enchantment is not all to poetry. It's very important actually to read a poem, even though your poetry was wonderfully presented orally. So if you didn't get blade work before the reading, gotta get it now. Gotta get it now. I just want to say before I introduce Kristina, 3 things. One is John Fowles, who wrote A French Lieutenant's Woman, also wrote a book called The Ebony Tower, which was based on, who's that British portraitist who does the kind of Goya-like, sort of very twisted figures? Anybody know who I'm talking about? Yes, Francis Bacon. So this book, which is fiction, is loosely based on Francis Bacon. And this cranky painter is complaining about abstraction in painting. He says it's a retreat from the body. Well, your poems are an embrace of the body. And thank you for that.
Thank you.
The second thing I want to say is that you have I think my favorite line in the book was that what you read was a palm, tell me if I got this right, a palm with a future that says no thank you, something like that.
Something like that.
It was like the second to last poem you read.
It was, I can find.
Anyway, I'm a bit of a naysayer like Bartleby in the Melville story.
I used to teach that
I
all the time.
would prefer not to. I would
Yeah.
prefer not to.
Oh, a future that says not now.
The future that says not now. There you go. And then it occurred to me that although you don't write in exact rhyme or meter, it seems to me that formal poetry has something that sort of seethes through your veins. Am I wrong about that? Were you a student of formal poetry at all?
A little bit.
Yeah, but it got into you.
I'm interested in rhyme and internal rhyme.
Yeah, rhyme. Rhyme is so wonderful, so important, and so eschewed by so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, a round of applause for Okay, Kristina Andersson Bicher. In a kind of ars poetica, that is a poem about the art of writing poetry, the speaker of Kristina Andersson Bicher's poem, Girl Learns to Speak, exhorts an unidentified addressee, perhaps the speaker herself, to reach down the dark of her throat, tear out the ball, the boat, the bird, and the brick. The violence may surprise, even shock, but many poets understand that to access the phenomena that deliver potent images and deeply affecting words, a poet becomes an extractor, one whose efforts sometimes involve strenuous and even troubling acts of will. In the poem Rendered Human, Bicher reminds us that the act of creation of the poet herself involved a brutal struggle, one that caused her mother to bleed profusely. I emptied out of a ruby storm, the speaker proclaims, and in the aftermath, the infant suffers privation and hideous discomforts. She was bramble swaddled, fed sumac from a spoon. She and a sibling are consigned to the wilderness to fend for themselves, gorgeously, terrifyingly described here. We, exiled, lived outdoors as mice. Say wild wooded things rattling in the leaf bin. sun-razored, blanched blue. The poetic address to a lost or dead dog often breeds a squeamish, treacly sentimentality. I had a poetry writing teacher in college who said, if I hear another poem about a dead dog, I'm gonna scream. But the tough-minded speaker of apology to a lost dog is having none of that. The apology for the inner weather of our house, I am sorry we'd gone deaf to you, shifts to a particularly deft and unsettling metonymy. Metonymy is the rhetorical device in which an aspect of something substitutes for the whole, as in the nautical alarm, all hands on deck. In heavy boots of winter, we taped your face to every pole. And finally, the circumstances that shaped a perpetrator of gun violence are not excused, but ironized. Let this be a lesson not to be born with the wrong illness. The hideous conclusion of the poem In the News steps out in the hobnail boots of a plain-spoken and understated horror. The maze that was his mind was set to blaze. The wires tripped. The match was lit. He got a gun. The suffering was manifold. Kristina.
Thank you, Tom. Now I feel like I don't need to even read them because you did them justice more than I could. I'm just gonna set my timer. Thank you, James and Aaron and Tom. It's really a treat to be here because I can't even really believe it because many years ago, my freshman roommate, Lo Galluccio right there, and we were in Well, and my other roommate, Denise, is here tonight. And I would walk down this street and I thought, being from Michigan, I was like, Clinton with a Y. I don't know, that was impossibly romantic. The spelling, everything was romantic about it. And this bookstore was romantic. And it's wonderful to be here. So I'm thrilled. Thank you. Yeah, so the book that preceded this was She Giant, in which a protagonist sort of wakes up in the middle of her life to sort of realize she has tremendous power. And then in this book, the giant, so to speak, goes out to the world and, says what she needs to say and does what she needs to do. And actually, the poem that you read was a limerick. I had a class by Patricia Smith, and she said, take a poem, write a limerick, but write about something really serious. So I'm going to reread that one as a limerick. Maybe you'll hear it. All right. Girl learns to speak. It's a little bit, taking some liberties. Reach down the dark of her throat, tear out the ball, the boat, the bird and the brick, a wave rushes ungripped, her voice reedy, pushing its note. There you go. So I like to try to play with form. I'm not going to read Rendered Human because you did such a beautiful job with that one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it. Well, you're just such a beautiful reader. Okay, Rendered Human. Oh, my mother doesn't like to hear, but anyway, you'll hear why. Each time my mother birthed, she bled such that on any given bygone day, we might have been her assassins. I say this so you understand depletion. Pints and pints we were given to know, and from what stone halls we rose. The first arrived in ice, the second into bells. I emptied out of a ruby storm, bramble swaddled, fed sumac from a spoon. We, exiled, lived outdoors as mice. Say wild wooded things rattling the leaf bin, sun-razored, blanched blue. In time, we took on the coolness of toads. Mother churning in the quiet factory of her face. When humans turn to totems, longing curls the tongue. It took a violent ache, a hard blow to wake me into being. Thank you, broken plates, the shock and shriek that opened from my mouth, some elemental iron climbing up my throat. Right. I'm gonna read. Oh, I'll just go back to Apology for a Lost Dog. And again, not only is there a dog in this poem, which is a no-no, I actually have the dog speaking. There's like a parenthetical phrase, and this teacher's like, is that the dog talking or the dog thinking? I'm like, Apology for a Lost Dog. For the inner weather of our house, I am sorry. We've gone deaf to you. We searched for you in roadside ditches. What had we done, That year you kept escaping. First, the trek to our old home, crossing highways. Then the night you leapt the stone wall. The waitress squealed her brakes. In heavy boots of winter, we taped your face to every pole, made known your name to every cop and city sanitation crew. One January morning, you didn't heed our call, had run, fell 12 feet down into an open concrete basement. 8 days in that pit. Did you mean to flee? I did. Was it so bad then? It was. When the firemen cradled your body up the metal rungs, offering you, oh, the dog was alive, offering you shallow breath, when I ran to you, when you looked at me, but hesitated. I am going to read the poem you mentioned about the boy with the gun, but also I'll just say, in the interest of disclosure, I have a son with a severe mental illness, and it sort of is part of everything that I do. And so this poem kind of thinks back to a moment before things took the shape that they've taken the shape. Glider plane. On his 16th birthday, we shot him into the ether, his arc still true, slung him blueward, tossed the baby up to see if he could fly. Those were the days before fog ate the valley, before a boy bit the moon and was diamond. He circled once, twice, 3 times, oh so weightless. We stood on a field watching, rooted among the dry stalks, our chests full, faces wet with sun, and we held up that sky. We should never have exhaled, but grown, lengthened, yes, opened up and out into spruces sprouting 10,000 arms, and each with 10,000 fingers, until we formed a lush green net, a sieve. You see, this was long ago, when once, a small bird sang. Okay, this is a word that one psychiatrist in the room will know the meaning of. So the poem is called In Minneapolis, Where You Learn a New Word. Crying into your cream of wild rice soup, sobbing with your mother on the phone in a coffee shop, weeping the strange prognosis and hoping your sunglasses are dark enough. Someone plunks a wad of napkins on the table in front of you, and the napkins splay and flutter as they fall. You look up. A man with a long white beard and skin like an old sweet potato has given you this, says nothing, and walks out the door. You're looking now at the picture window, and suddenly a clown in tent stripes and blue wig waves at you, and behind him a dark smudge of a dog, and then a small human on a skateboard. You've forgotten your woe, but there are words one must try to avoid. Degenerative and refractory are 2. Your mother advises fresh air, moving the legs. You have sopped through most of the napkins, but stashed the remainder in your tote. They are the color of unbleached wheat. Outside, the sun is blanching the bodies on the sidewalk, and you go looking for a river. Later, over drinks, you tell the story to Kay, who says a poet creates her own idiom, and then you know what you must do. You must fight for every scrap in the face of this. And is there such a thing as pre-grief? Is it the same as preparation? Is it like being grass-bound, watching the undersides of clouds? Now you've left this town, going home on a plane. You can stop your leaking. There's a big man next to you, slumped on his tray table. You want to tell him that it's okay to lean on you. Could he please lean on you? And then in the news, another boy was gravely ill. He suffered, so his suffering was manifold. His suffering was manifold. His suffering was manifold. And when he died, his house came down. They stomped it down so no one would remember him. Remember him, remember. Did he toe walk, talk to angels, talk to no one? Mother, oh, were there signs? Mother, did you miss the signs? Oh, oh. Had she wheeled him through school halls or pricked his pretty thumb or thumped his chest thrice daily, encased his head in foam? Had he a crooked gait, they would have forgiven her son. Let this be a lesson not to be born with wrong illness. The maze that was his mind was set to blaze. The wires tripped, the match was lit. He got a gun. The suffering was manifold, Okay, I'll try to go to a somewhat brighter place. It is possible, doesn't always happen. So some of the poems in this book are about desire and grappling kind of with having ambivalence about desire and just, anyway, that's all I'll say. But different note here. So this poem is called In Amsterdam Waiting. In Amsterdam waiting for dear Jack as he catches the last train from Eindhoven to meet me. I have eaten a clean and decent cheese, drank a dram of Bock, washed, then wandered into a waffled hotel robe, reordered my legs on the many feathered pillows. Outside, a baby grand flops on a meat hook. A barge pulls the gray-green ribbon of its grief along the canal. The carmine shutters are the flared and fixed gills of a giant wooden fish, and your voice is a vine of church and stream. Ancient clocks whir their tiny tambourines. Soon we will be 2 racehorses in the age of elephants. This poem is, for some reason, sometimes I think about fictional characters, and this is sort of thinking about Wonder Woman of all things, and like, what's her day like? What happens when she goes home at night? To Lower East Side, do a walk up, you know? So the poem is called Undressed. She peels the red plasticine boots down, down past chapped calves and blue ankle bones, picks off the small stone from the sole of her foot, removes breastplate and bodice, rests tiara on the nightstand, unclinks her silver cuffs and climbs into bed. 2 pigeons mad coupling rackets the air shaft nearby. Where is sleep? The lasso on the floor twitches the dart of its tail, and her discarded skirt is a lake of dented stars. Her hair, dark things. Couple more, too many more. There's a section of the book in the middle where I kind of take on the opera Carmen. I love opera, and I try to rewrite, into that opera with some of the characters. So this is, it's based on the Seguidilla is a dance. So it's called Spurned Love, Spanish Dance. And it's a form that repeats a lot. Only ever the Seguidilla of you. Black bra straps like snakes, like bones. And I'm weak as green wheat in June, with hungers like roots through stone. Black bra straps like snakes, like bones, hair and lips stained pink, with hungers like roots through stone. To hold the seed of you is to sink.
hair and lips stained pink, which is to say never again, to hold a seed of you to sink into the heaven that is your bed, which is to say never again, weak as green wheat in June, in the heaven that is your bed, but only ever the sigadia of you. And then this one is a pantoum, so that also repeats and rhymes. The chase. Still he pursues her, in the noodle shop, the stairs, still he pursues her, all this she bears, peels the ring off the floor, in the noodle shop, the stairs, tinsel from the dime store and rust in his teeth, peels the ring off the floor, his voice a dark street, bristling with flowers and rust in his teeth. Bees ravage the bowers, fear pricks the heart, bristling with flowers. From the very start, fear pricks the heart. Still he pursues her, still he pursues her. And I will read one last poem, and this one is taking on the idea, well, the story of Rapunzel, which I find kind of infuriating, like women are objectified and all these things. So the poem is called Her Ambivalence, and there's an epigraph by Robert Creeley, which is, what am I to myself that must be remembered? Cascade of floss and gold she could not ascend, slick scented river, because Rapunzel's braid was built for others. She ever the dark rosette of someone else's desire. Now heaven so blued, so far, nights and nights, her song grows. Oh, that's my time. Her song grows, the cord lengthens. Be for me, she says, and casts herself into the air, and again, again.
All right, a question for you. Did dog survive?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Dog did great.
Did they try to run away again?
Yes. But then he moved out with my daughter, and he's.
So again, another kind of enchantment. And I was particularly taken by, in the last couple of poems, this incredible rush of images. There was just like the one about waiting for the sweet Jack, or whatever his name was, eating the cheese, and the piano, the grand piano hanging by a hook, and the barge or the ship, whatever it was. I mean, each one was so exquisite. And I was thinking to myself, the rest of the poems that you read all had the exact same kind of exquisiteness. And I thought, boy, that's really a feat, where almost every line, every image, every phrase has a wonderful charm, magic, idiosyncratic wonder to it. That's really quite a feat. It's quite wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. And again, if you haven't already got the book, now really, I'm serious here. I know you probably all feel harangued and harassed by me, but you need to buy at least one book of these three poets before you leave. You just owe it to them and to the store. And I think they all donated their books to the store. So you're helping the store out. Believe me, there's not a lot of money in selling poetry. So this place runs on a shoestring. And James Fraser has done such a fantastic job of making this a democratic, freewheeling, wonderful space. It used to be you couldn't get a reading here unless you were a big, big deal, right? But James has opened this up to so many wonderful poets. It's been so great. Let's give a round of applause for James. So again, another really beautiful cover, Heat, Sob, Lily. Not connected to you, is it? Also available. All right, last but not least, I don't usually do any kind of bio, but I have to say that Lo Galluccio has been working with me in my poetry writing workshops for many years, and it is a great joy to work with Lo.
Thank you.
Okay, Lo Galluccio. Addressing a lover, the speaker of Lo Galluccio's poem Millennium informs him I still dive for faces in the waves, trophies of us lost and trophies of us saved. Indeed, the present of the speaker's articulations is, like the present in many of Galluccio's poems, a savory of savage nostalgia, a rueful retrospective in which the reminiscer haunts herself with the prickly paroxysms of encounters from the past and in the future. And I'm not going to apologize for any of that alliteration. The recounting of these encounters invites danger, and a tale that might promise redemption brings on a seemingly never-ending torment, as when a list of lines beginning, "It must have started when," or "It started because," recalls the speaker's initiation into a god's bedevilment on the backs of a story I told myself to get my solar plexus back. That's from a poem called How It Started with Ganesha. A poet inspired by the long tradition of romanticism might find some elusive comfort in the charms of nature, but many of Galluccio's speakers are not seduced. They know that the most robust plant might harbor some insidious infection that even a bird of feathery hope might drown. The punch of the drunk when he sees, spilling laughter in trees, orange of mating, yellow of pain, the tangles of chatter, feet and heart freeze, the desert, the cactus disease, morning of pink, silence of white, the melody of hope sinking tight, killing fever, damage done. Now, who could complain about the rhyme in that poem? That's from a poem called Canyon. A poetic voice so close to terror does not ask for compensatory relief, and sometimes the passion of the voice makes a reader believe that conventional relief would be an undoing, as in the torrid recollections of Fernando, a sonnet, one of the sexier poems I've ever read. The addressee inspires the speaker to be breathing chlorophyll into mud. The speaker acknowledges the strange satisfactions of their contact. His wide black eyes shuttered with lust. His opening me like a sunrise in Miami, or the cherry smoke from a lit cigar. I needed his flesh, his penetration, like I needed a collaboration with the grave of night. Even the heroin he cooks brings on a searing insight. That brown serum heated to collude desire with eerie distance. Lo Galluccio, as well as being a poet, is a memorably enchanted singer, songwriter, performer who brings the great suppleness of her poetic skills to bear in casting with the eye hooks and fish hooks with which she captures and captivates her audience. So if you don't like to buy poetry books, you should check out some of her music, which is all over the web. And I hope that you will, if you haven't bought this already, you can read along. You're going to read a few things from this or nothing? Nothing from this. Oh, well. Anyway.
My chapbook is here too.
Your chapbook is here too. Okay. Lo Galluccio.
Thank you so much, Tom. Those are really hard acts to follow. Both of you, beautiful work. I want to thank James and Tom and the Grolier and Kristina because she encouraged me to propose this reading. And she is indeed a dear old roommate friend. Well, Tom read a lot of this poem, but I was going to start with it. So I think I will. It's called Canyon, and it's from my chapbook, Not for Amnesia, which Cervena Press put out in 2023. The slick stuff in the pink jar, a white cat glittering eyes green, the black and tan bruises of your hands on my mind. The lonely rub of a lover married, the ice blue of a dead one smoking, a spire of light that seethes in spite of the seagull choking. Black clam stranded on the sand, the burrowing germ of our lost plan, fire in the eyes of a hungry God, the digging your mouth couldn't take, the dream I can't quite forsake, A green turns yellow, red of the bake, the punch of the drunk when he sees, spilling laughter in trees, orange of mating, yellow of pain, the tangles of chatter, feet and heart freeze, the desert, the cactus disease, morning of pink, silence of white, the melody of hope sinking tight, killing fever, damage done, the echo, the loss of someone. So some of you know my ordeal with the Hindu deity Ganesha, who I worshipped in New York City and who gave me voices, who tested me, tricked me, and cursed me, and also helped me. So this is called How It Started with Ganesha. And it's a prose poem. I tried to guess what weather the water would be when I orbited the mystic shop, the little owls, the onyx fingers, sank deep into the freezing bath, let him go and watch the doorbell, fixated on it never ringing again, heard the god's name before I said it over and over like a rosary, heard her scream from the solitary room of a brutal psych ward. I moved to that metropolis with $2,000 and hope like a trick bird that could sing. I was precocious and sturdy like Kachi's little mouse. I never knew how to love with humility and grace inside a mythology that was also praxis and strategy. There was the story I told myself to get my solar plexus back, a shrine in my path. I wanted more than starch and sex. I didn't trust the real world any more than I trusted the clock or Christ. I had endured a catastrophe. I trusted Om, and I needed something far out and non-rational, freakish. He caught me posing. He caught me weeping. He caught me with the crown of my head in his gaze, and it started. It never stopped. This next poem is about an ex named Adam, who I loved a great deal. And it's called The Steak and the Rose. I began writing poetry that summer in Lucky's house after he said, I can't do this anymore. I killed him with my tears and he swooned like Agnes of God, bleeding from the nose. We lived in a glass house with no doors, but they slammed often, and I didn't appreciate the Progresso soups we'd had since Chicago, his lovely scarred bareback and black hair. It started when he saw me in Mem Hall after a lecture on the Mexican Revolution. His girlfriend accused me of stealing him, and speechless, a coward, I just backed away. I gave him a Mac stall from Where the Wild Things Are and asked him to fuck me like Sonny Corleone against the door standing up. And he did many times. Heartlessly, I told my friend he was like chocolate ice cream compared to my last boyfriend, when really he was the steak. He was the steak, like Paul Newman said about Joanne Woodward. They mated for life and never stabbed each other in the back. When one was the rose, the other was the gardener, and so forth for at least 5 decades. Hold on to that one, my mother should have said, shaken me like a bag of rice, splashed freezing water on my feet. That way it wouldn't have ended. That way I would have been a bride instead of writing this poetry. I was the prickly rose. He was the steak, and he was the bloody steak. I, the elegant rose. Maybe we died together that day. Is it better to be a poet? This next piece was written after Paul Celan's work, and it's a track on a record that I made with Eric Zinman, who's in the house, who's a fantastic avant-garde pianist and composer. It's called Terrible Baubles, our record. And this track is on Spotify and Bandcamp with piano and cello. And it's called My Brother Alaska. I went to Alaska to escape the red hills of him saying mandolin in Italian. A knife under his smile, a knife under the sink, a land open to the sun, open like Ophelia. It smiled with its engine. It smiled so his fire truck of childhood would remain. In a Polaroid, I see the way he ruled his rage to reclaim it. I went to Alaska. Into an updraft of silence I go with these keys to worship the ice as a Vatican, a well. Waves take my brother out. Grave fractures our driveway and shark teeth like memory run smooth and aluminum. I went to Alaska. I can't escape the hills, not with my army of horses, not with my chariot of eyes. He rises a child and I can't wake him. The secrets between us are locked in the map. Or is it amnesia? My brother, Alaska, what is it you dream? If you have a dark dream, chase it. The wolves will bury your dream under the moon. The moon is not vortex. One aghast pearl, pregnant, dressing the void. Light, light. And Alaska carries time into another wavelength, eliminating your miasma of aim. I went to Alaska. I went to Alaska. I went to Alaska. This poem, next one, I have two more, was written in New York City a number of years ago. And it's for another ex, sort of a theme of the reading, I suppose. This is from Mike Williams, Harvard class of 1985. And it's called Millennium. And I was inspired by Bob Dylan. You walk in and it's just like the millennium. In my dream, he said, so far away in life. Married now, he's dusted off the bits of our romantic strife. But as sure as I'm still reeling, as the snow is white, New York's drifts are lousy gray, and the millennium's my wife. To a cold room, you'd visit me all crucified. Make me come, you'd sigh, closing your eyes. The Magdalene would open up her thighs. His blackouts were my wine. As long as I stay sober, the rain may clear my sight. Babylon is my redemption, and the millennium's my wife. A straight girl once I saw my father fade and die. My great God was dead, not like Nietzsche meant. In our strange love, he rose up from the deep, where he and I would meet. And as long as I'm still haunted, as the ghosts are rife, we know that bridges burn us, and the millennium's my wife. Lolita has her melodrama, you would scoff. She sobs to get off. Humbert's hot. In your suburban house, I couldn't breathe. The middle class does bleed. As long as I'm still running, it cuts me like a knife. Here's to your second coming. The millennium's my wife. To a hotel of achievement, we had come to get our wings. I learned how to drown. It taught me many things. I still dive for faces in the waves, trophies of us lost and trophies of us saved. And though it left us stranded, we both used dark for flight. In dream, I may have landed. The millennium's my wife. A spring like this, I guess it was some years ago. There were no tulips, but a pale volcanic snow. We'd made it through the gauntlet, and our hearts were stuck below. But as the castle marked us, and as the day was night, in Oz I'm resurrecting, and the millennium's my wife. And this is the last piece I'll read. So this is about a lover who is a heroin addict. Hats off to Diane Seuss, who's fucking amazing, and who herself writes about a heroin addict lover in several books. This is called Fernando, a sonnet. I used to say his name as I pressed down on my clit in tiny circles, imagining his hands vying for me, whispered, "Am I a good girl?" breathing chlorophyll into mud. It was years after a wild mating in New York. His wide black eyes shuddered with lust, his opening me like a sunrise in Miami or the cherry smoke from a lit cigar. I needed his flesh, his penetration, like I needed a collaboration with the grave of night. His horse, always a phone call away, his needle making him a monstrous alien, that brown serum heated to collude desire with eerie distance. And even when I decided it would have been better to lock him out, I still invited the phantasm of his love back in. I'm the baby doll, the queen bee, the shattering mermaid. We are riding wild zebras and singeing the wind. We are so broken and gone. We were never even a couple, just a phenom of black hearts melting into gasoline, a funny fuel. Every time you disappear, you return, a different Halloween sprite, treat, goblin, god. I gobble myself up to reignite. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, my goodness, 3 extraordinary readers. Lo, a couple of things. First of all, thank you so much for bringing up Progresso soups and Sonny Corleone and that scene from The Godfather. It's even better in the book, actually. And also bringing up Paul Newman. Did you ever hear Johnny Carson's weather report from Fire Island? So Fire Island, of course, has a gay enclave. So Johnny Carson does the weather report from Fire Island. Tomorrow, the sky will be as blue as Paul Newman's eyes. I also was really taken with the energy of not the last poem, but the poem before. What's the title of that? Millennium. Yeah. Just the images in that were so extraordinary, searing. And then you have that capacity for being both a wonderful singer and you use your voice in your reading of poetry, which makes it so much more enjoyable. All 3 of you are wonderful readers. It was a great experience. I know some of you have suffered under academic poets. These 3 couldn't be accused of that kind of reading at all. It was wonderful. So a big round of applause for Lo and for Kristina. So Lo didn't read from this book, but it's a wonderful book. And where's the chapbook where is Lo's chapbook out and available there? On the shelf? Okay. All right. And where's Eric Zinman? Eric, round of applause for Eric. Prematurely, perhaps, but if you go to the web and find My Brother Alaska by Lo Galluccio, it's Eric's arrangement. The music behind it is so incredibly haunting. It's really a beautiful piece of music. All right, so James is going to come up and say something, but just one more thing. Those of you who are listening in over Zoom, thanks for listening. And I'm sorry I didn't say hello earlier, but thank you for participating. And please do make me feel better by buying at least one book. Or if you have all the books, buy a t-shirt.
Thank you so much, Tom. Let's give Tom a round of applause for a wonderful moderation tonight. And one more round of applause for all the poets for a wonderful reading. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you here in person and also here on Zoom. The Grolier wouldn't be what it is tonight without all of you. So thank you so much. If you could all please put your chairs up against one of the walls, I'd be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. These are yours. These are mine. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The fun thing about a reading.
Let's get a photograph of the four of you. How about that?
I agree. I feel like I kind of watched out because
I think I would here. Is that okay?
I was listening to you. Oh, that is.
Let's get a photograph before you get swarmed by people trying to sign your books. Oh, they're buying books. All right.
Great reading, guys. That was awesome. I'm just gonna get my camera.
They weren't like those sponsors. That is a terrific.
Body.
So much,
Right? Oh, thanks.
You guys
That's the best part.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I like.
It was a different, yeah, I agree with you.
Taking
a nice photo.
Like, I think like 3 different
Okay.
takes on this. Looks like some-
First to me. Beautiful. Very beautiful. Okay.
Hold on.
Now the others.
All right, let me get a shot with you in there, James.
With me?
Yeah, with you.